Hold on.
Oh man. Ooh, what a week. Oh, this thing, that recording thing, it's like I feel like you're cranking up a Model T trying to get that thing going. It's like, is it gonna catch?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Or starting up your old lawn boy when you were a
yeah,
kid. It's like, is it going to be this time or the hundredth
yeah,
time like last time?
yeah. Which, hey, by the way, we are recording. That makes me think of something. But hey, welcome to Over 50 Starting Over, and I'm Merle.
You're Merle Garrison and I'm Barry Edwards.
I almost
Why
did it
does this
last time.
happen?
I don't know. I don't know. That's the funniest thing. I am actually Barry Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
Oh, you made me think there a second ago. We were talking about starting up things. I apparently blew out the engine on my snowblower, and oh yeah, man, it spent like $800 on that thing about 5, 6 years ago, and yeah, it served me well for the most part. But a year or two ago, we spent another like $180 on rebuilding the carburetor,
Oh,
and it I used it once last year, and I was going to use it for the first time this year the other day. Well, being the dummy that I am, I finally now read up on what's probably wrong with it. It's the fact that it's had old gas in it for 2, 3 years.
that
And
makes a huge difference.
it does make a huge difference. You could buy this stuff that I forget what it's called, but it's kind of a
Yeah.
condition that you should put in it. And well, I did that way too late, and I'm sure I torched it. But at the end of the day, all I got to say is I said this to Lisa. I'm so done with gas engines. I really am. I don't care if it's a weed eater or whatever. I have nothing but problems. Like the first 5 times, this is great. This is so fun. And, whatever. Same with that snowblower. It's actually fun when it's working. But I
It's
have nothing
fun.
problem. Oh yeah, yeah.
Ah.
I
Wait,
think
wait, wait.
so.
What do you find fun about that?
I don't know, man. It's like being a kid. You're throwing snow all over the place. I do the sidewalks up and down the street. I do. I do neighbors' aprons all the way up and down the side of the street. But it didn't take me too long. I'm like the last person in the neighborhood to do the math on this. If you got somebody that will do a push, plow your driveway with their
Right,
truck
right.
for $25, $30, and you need it done 2 or 3 times a year, you're coming out way better than me rebuilding a carburetor
Yeah.
once, in all regards. But I do like having it because when we get those, those 3 pushes
Right.
that you need, they're like
Yeah.
back to back to back days. It's just snowing for a whole week straight. That's when it happens. Anyways, so I went looking at the electric snow blowers in the reviews and everything on YouTube. They've come of age
Have they
these days.
really?
I mean, battery operated. And yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
well,
So you could
okay, yeah.
get these, kind of big ones with 2 dual batteries in there that'll last 45 minutes apiece. That's way more than I need. And, I saw the reviews just as powerful as my old one for $600 rather than $800 for
Mm-hmm.
the gas operated one with all the pain in the ass stuff that comes along with it. So that's my diatribe on gas powered engines. You made me think of it as soon as we signed on here. So there you go.
Well,
How you
I got to
doing?
tell you, Barry, here's how I'm doing. I'm really glad that I don't have to worry about snowblowers
Sure.
because,
Sure.
you know what? I never had one. And, growing up, we had a gigantic driveway and
Yeah,
it was
but your
on a
parents
hill and
had you
everything.
and Scott.
Yeah, yeah. So this was the deal is that I would beg for a snowblower. Dad,
Yeah.
there's because all the neighbors had one. And we didn't. And I said, Dad, we can you go buy a snowblower? And he goes, Why would I do that? I got 2 of them right here in the kitchen. And now go blow. He was real funny.
I can totally see him doing that though. It's very predictable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sure,
It was.
I don't know. I think that shoveling a driveway, if you do it right, it's terrific exercise at a time of year when we're getting a lot less exercise than normal here in the more northern part of the country.
Right.
So
Well, I
I've always been
tell
a
you,
fan.
You know, I mean, you said the magic word though, is if you do it right, because there's a right way and there's a wrong way,
Oh
and
yeah, it could
you know,
kill
a
you.
lot of people could. I mean, people drop dead of heart attacks doing this kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and the snow, the kind of snow you guys get out there. I mean, I can remember
when it's
snow up
wet.
my chest and that wet snow. Even the snowblower has a hard time with
Yeah,
that.
true.
That's some tough stuff right there. Not to mention, you can blow out your back pretty easily.
Oh, very easily. And yeah, that's why I stressed you got to do it right. And, I've gotten the sore back from it as well. But overall, like I said, it's kind of in some ways it's welcome exercise when I'm getting a lot less this time of year.
Well,
Hey,
oh, I'm
go,
sorry. I wanted to bring up something here, which is that I had this fantastic opportunity that started out as really a negative, and we were talking about blowing out backs. I actually did that over the week because I was jealous because you had stubbed your toe so badly last
it's
week. I thought,
only just starting to feel better, by the way.
okay, the picture you sent me was
Mm-mm.
gnarly, man. I thought
It was black and blue.
you
I
got
did it right. I did it right. Yeah.
well, so for me, I blew out my back over the weekend, and I was in bed pretty much all weekend. And the
Wow.
cool, okay, so that part was bad.
Sure.
But the cool thing is that I was a captive audience all weekend long, and the deal for me was, I was feeling, yeah, I've been, really focused on this whole impeachment thing and all, and you know what? It's depressing. I
It
mean,
is.
it gives you a dark feeling, and when you hear these people speak, it just brings you right down, and so I was having a real problem with this whole, dark feeling and just feeling really tired as well, just lethargic, and
It's
it's
the time
taking
of year though too.
all the
It's
wind
dark.
out of my sails. Yeah, it's the time of the year, and then listening
Mhm.
to all this stuff and being concerned about the country. So
Sure.
now I'm on my back, and my mom recommended a book to me by an author, Norman Vincent Peale. You might have heard the name before, a very
Sounds
famous author.
familiar.
Yeah, and he's a pastor. He's passed away long since, but he was a pastor of a church in New York. But he's most noted for this book that he wrote called The Power of Positive Thinking.
Hmm.
So, do you have that app called Audible?
Yes,
Okay, I think that's such a great app. So,
I do too.
I I was in such misery that I'm a big reader, but I didn't even want to read. So I downloaded this book and I listened to it. And I got to tell you, Barry, it really brought me out of those doldrums there. Just
Really?
yeah, there was just a lot of really just okay. Here's the whole concept.
Before I
It's
forget, I think that you can forward that to me. With
yeah,
Audible, I think their
yeah, I can.
deal is that.
I
Please
can't
do.
do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I recommend this to
Mhm.
everybody, actually. But there's some serious concepts here, and I think it's important for us, especially for, over 50 starting over. Many of us are starting over right now, and it's really easy to get all up into your brain and think about how. We focus on little areas of our life, and we say, "Oh, I'm a failure in that area, or I feel bad
Yeah.
about myself, or I feel very insecure about this area." And this book helps to focus your attention on the good things that normally outweigh the bad things and cause you to use that as your strength. And so
Nice.
here's a couple of analogies here. I heard this guy who was a mentor of mine a long time ago, and he said it this way: you can't just drink cyanide, right? It's going to kill you. However, if you were to take that same amount of cyanide and dump it into a swimming pool full of water and then take a drink of that, it's not going to kill you. Okay. So the whole concept is that when you get yourself into that down mode, it's probably because you filled your head full of that cyanide. And
Sure.
what you need to do is you need to dilute that, or even drain that out in order to get yourself into a position of power. When you're in that negative mode, it saps all of the energy out of you.
It really does.
That positive mode, it's the spark of energy and creativity that happens. Now, I have to admit, this is a faith-based book. Norman Vincent Peale is a Christian, but he makes a statement at the beginning of the book that, okay, he's a Christian, but faith is the key. You don't have to be a Christian, in other words. Faith is really the spark for creativity, believing in a power that's above you. For us, it's Jesus, and that this power that's above you is the source of all power, is the source of all creativity, is the source of wisdom, and that you can have that power on the inside of you in order to propel you to success in every single area of your life. And so that alone is huge. And focusing on that and meditating on that and visualizing that first thing in the morning before you get out of bed, and really focusing on that God has prepared a day for you. There may be obstacles, but he's overcome all of those obstacles on your behalf, and those obstacles will put you into a stronger position as you go forward. Sets your compass for the whole day. Again, also, when you go to bed at night.
Yep.
What you tune into right before you go to sleep is super important. And so they told a story, a guy, these people were all sitting around the table, and they were on a business trip, and they were all talking about how they couldn't sleep at night. And this guy was saying, well, I figured out the secret of that. And for him, it was to read the Bible every night before he went to sleep. And he actually spoke of a particular Psalm 23, which is a very famous one. So I was having a hard time going to sleep. In fact, because of that, I was taking some Advil PM in order to fall asleep. That just makes you really groggy in the morning.
It does. NyQuil, I've done that. Oh, I go to the gym in the morning. I'm exactly. Like a hangover. Yeah.
So I tried it. I used to do this a long time ago, and I hate to say it, but I stopped doing that. So I started doing that again. Barry, I've been having the best night's sleep ever because I read these things, then I pray about it afterwards. I lie in my bed and I focus on the most amazing things that I just read. I just drift off into sleep, and I sleep all night long. I don't even wake up. And when I wake up in the morning, I feel like $1 million. So I just wanted to pass that along to everybody. Again, it's called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
Okay, I wrote that down. I'm going to put that in the show notes.
Oh, good.
Okay.
This is something that I think, whether you're a Christian, whether you're of another faith, this will help everybody. And everybody needs that power. There was something that I found in the Bible as I was studying this all out. I just happen to have mine in front of me, and it says, there's just a couple of things here, is that have you known, have you not heard, the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases strength. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And here's another one I underlined. That was from Isaiah chapter 40, but 41 also says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you." And then finally, "Fear not, I will help you." So believing that God is with you, God is for you, and God is helping you, and waking up in the morning and knowing that and just repeating that to yourself maybe 10 times just gets into your heart. And then it's almost like that battery that you talked about on the snowblower, you've got the battery on the inside of you now, and you let that battery do the work through you, and then you can just be yourself. It's a beautiful.
I agree with you. And we've talked about it before. What you put into your mind at the end of the day, as you go to sleep, when you open up your subconsciousness, it's very important, and it's very hard to find stuff that isn't dark these days. No longer are we going to bed after watching a Disney show or cartoon where, the person overcomes a challenge and becomes a hero, and we go to bed with smiles on our faces. It just isn't that way anymore. It's very difficult. So one thing I was going to suggest, I think I have before, I go through bouts of insomnia, and for free on YouTube, and you really need to do this with earbuds, but you can find self-hypnosis audios. Of course, there's video there. It's YouTube, but it's just watching a bunch of goop go around on the screen or whatever usually. But most self-hypnosis audios have really soothing music in the background. Michael Sealey is one of my favorite authors of hypnosis, and a lot of them are overcoming limited feelings of limited beliefs or anxiety. All these things, they're all related. Any trouble that we have that's keeping us up at night is going to go back to anxiety. So it is all about, reducing this kind of thing. And I totally agree with you. When you get up in the morning, anything inspirational, whether it's Christian faith-based or, again, YouTube, man, you could get a lot of Tony Robbins type people that have some really incredible things that you can watch in 10 minutes that will pump you up before you go and get at things. I'm just going to make that point that I think in today's world where we're very marketing driven, which preys on our fears, it's really, really tough. You got to make a conscious effort to find that positivity out there, because everybody's trying to make you think that everything's hopeless unless you buy their product or service. Don't you think?
I totally agree with you. And we're permeated by this, right? I mean, you watch any television show and you see the people that are on there and they're all just beautiful. And you think, what's wrong with me? And then
our politics,
the news, just any news station that you turn to. It doesn't even have to be politics. It's Chicken Little, man. The sky is falling.
And yet we live in the best time ever. Where people's biggest problem is not having the newest iPhone or $150 tennis shoes. Yeah.
Right. Oh, and speaking of, you were talking about the YouTube and self-hypnosis. I found this other app called Abide. Again, it's a Christian app, but it's for people that have insomnia or anxiety. And so I found that, and I haven't listened. I downloaded this. I haven't really listened to the anxiety part, but the sleep part. As I said, I was having problems with that. It wasn't just last weekend. It's been the last few weeks. And so I found this app called Abide, and it's got they have a sleep app, and it has the most soothing for sounds. You can pick like rain or a stream or waves, and then
waves. Love waves.
Me too, right? It's just soothing. But then there's this voice that comes on and starts to talk about affirmations that are in the Bible. Like, for instance, salvation is yours. Rest now. Stuff like that. And I found myself just I'd fall asleep in 5 minutes listening to stuff. The problem I had is I'd wake up in the morning and those earbuds would be so painful in my ear. So there's got to be a different solution to that. Yeah.
Get a different pair. You can get I live on earbuds today, whether it's listening to my podcasts or my laptop is plugged into my ears at night. And I have different earbuds for different applications, but they normally come these days with different size tips that you can take off that fit your ears.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
so get a
those
different
things
pair.
that stick out that like I normally sleep on my side. So when I
Yeah.
lay down on it, it's like
Mhm.
I wake, it doesn't hurt immediately, but after all night, it's like, yow.
Yeah, you might want to look into another pair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another
I'm pretty.
$50 pair of
Yeah,
earphones.
I need them embedded into my ears for
Right? Exactly.
surgically because I use them all the time. You know that's
I
coming
do
in a
too,
couple
actually.
years.
No, it's totally coming. Where people
Yes.
remember when they first had the first that thing you put in your ear for your cell phone. I don't know what it was
Yeah.
called, but everyone
And
had
people
it. It was
used,
like
yeah, and people would want to purposely walk around the store talking
that's
on the
it.
phone, and
And they looked like
yeah,
Lieutenant Uhura, they had that big thing sticking out of their
yeah,
ear.
right.
I remember when I moved from Cleveland to Chicago back around 2000. This is when this first started catching on, and it hadn't really caught on in Cleveland yet, so I wasn't used to this. But I remember at lunchtime, I went out on the street, and I thought everyone was crazy because they were all talking to themselves really loud.
Right. Now it's just like a day at the gym, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, imagine when they're implanted in our heads, people are just going to be like, "What?"
No kid. It does make me think of though. I got immune to it. A couple years ago, I went on the 5 borough bike ride in New York with
Yeah,
a
I
group of
remember that.
friends. That was a lot of
I was
fun.
jealous.
I had one earbud in my ear at all times, and Lisa calls, and I don't think about this. And apparently it happened a few times. I spent most of the time with my friend David Edelman. We're on that ferry we're done with everything. We're on the ferry going to the Statue of Liberty or something. And I did not realize it, but I got my sunglasses on, got my garb on, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Hey honey, how you doing?" And David's looking right at me, goes, "Dude, are you talking to Lisa again?"
I hope so.
Right. I don't even realize it. That's the day and age we live in.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it
I
is.
love
It
it.
is.
I love it.
Hey, you know what? I was this is weird that last night, all right, well, a couple weeks ago, I got an email from Lakeland Community College where I used to teach for a long
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But it was from a group. They have so many different after hours kind of different groups and a small business association that does a lot of things for entrepreneurs. And I got an email about starting a new career at symbol at 50 plus. And I'm like, what?
They're stealing it
Like,
from you.
over 50 starting over. I thought I made that up, this whole thing. I've heard of similar things here and there once in a while, but this one, and it's sponsored by AARP.
Oh,
And so I signed up for it. I went to it last night and
you
it
did?
was really good.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And
Wow. What'd
yeah,
you pick
I mean,
up?
well, first of all, I was thinking that it was going to be really loosey goosey, but I figured, I was going to see just what I could see, and I knew the guy a little bit. That was one of the co-presenters, and is a very likable guy, very knowledgeable. He's an engineer, and they follow this really terrific book, about a 40-page book, very well done, very professionally put together. And, I thought it was going to be a 5-page Xerox of, something that someone threw together.
Right.
No, it was really good. There was about 25 people, I'm guessing. And I wanted to, he knew who I was, and he's like, "Hey, we're going to be calling on you." And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overstepping my bounds, because most of the people in there are either retired or, we went around and introduced ourselves and asked what we're looking to get out of this. A lot of people were retired looking for that part-time work or whatever.
Mhm.
And some
Right.
people are like, "Well, I would like to get onto something else, but I don't know what it is." And of course I introduced myself. "Well, this is what I specialize in." And I did, I made sure that I only commented at a few places where I was truly adding something without looking like I'm
Taking over the class.
Taking over.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So it was really fun. And it was really good. And so what I got out of it was, first, I want to stress that go ahead and look on AARP if you're interested in these kinds of things, because I come at this kind of stuff from a very much a marketing point of view. AARP comes at it from a very introductory point of view about questions that I've been self-employed for 30 years. So there's things that I think about. And from the very beginning of, well, what do I need to do to apply to, the difference between an LLC, a sole proprietor, different kinds of incorporations, how to apply, what to expect tax-wise. So your very, very initial questions, they do approach some things about, well, how do I find this passion of mine? They have some rudimentary things, and I have a much more comprehensive free download on over50startingover.com that addresses that kind of thing. So it's very complimentary. I'm going to keep my eyes out for more of this, with whether Lakeland continues to carry this ball or whether I just have to look deeper into AARP, which I normally try to avoid because I'm not old enough to be partaking in that.
I was about to say that. It's like the first time I got something from AARP, it wasn't a good day for me. Like what? This isn't. It's almost like those old Viagra commercials. Yeah, it's good, but I don't need it.
Right. I got my neighbor's email or mail for sure. So it's really good. A lot of us are, thinking about these kind of, so many people get squeezed out today. And so that's an issue. Okay, related. I'm going to segue right into this real quick. I found, when I was going through current events stuff, I found this link about the most rewarding part-time jobs you could do after retiring. And it's one of those kind of clickbaity kind of things where you got to click through like 25 different things. But there's a couple good ones. Of course, it starts with freelancer or consultant. The number one thing should be obvious that, most people that want to go out on their own have built up decades of experience in whatever it is, in whatever form of business that they've been working in. Well, being a business consultant on your own is the most natural way to go about things. It's just a matter of building your list for marketing purposes and knowing how to promote yourself. That's a tricky part that I help people out with. But so that's the obvious one, but there's a couple good ones in here. I'm just going to throw them out real quick because I was like, hey, I would like to do that. Like working at a resort. Well,
wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
Substitute teacher. I don't know about that.
No, thank you.
It's something to do, but
that sounds like hell.
Right. Tour guide. That's not
right up my alley. I could do that.
You know what? You could. And in LA, you probably got a lot of competition, but at the same time, I think you could excel at it.
But at the same time, too, there's so many people that come here that there's got to be room,
You have, very true. You have an endless audience and you would excel. You would be in the upper, with your personality, you'd be in the upper 90%. So you would build off a very good review. So you need your good online presence that is then perpetuated and fueled by the reviews, which you would be like, so just give me your review. And so, okay. So other things, there's pet sitter and dog walker. That's all cool stuff. And you get exercise
in shape. Yeah.
As long as you don't get bit. Or
I forgot about that.
Think about, this is something that we talked about in that class last night, is liabilities. Do you need insurance? What if the dog gets hit by a car or sick on your watch? Holy crap.
Horrifying.
Yeah. So there's that kind of stuff. There's a bookstore assistant, private tutor, boring. But there was one interpreter, a translator, librarian assistant. I bet they're pretty bored these days, except for kids. Kids.
Does anyone go to the library anymore? I mean,
I do on rare occasion, but it's usually to use their printer or something, because everything else I get online. I used to get their books on CD for when I'm in my car, but even that anymore, I just put my podcasts on or Audible, as we were talking about, while I'm driving around in my car. Here's one that you would like: working in or alongside the clergy. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I've done that.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Writing jobs, child care, Uber or Lyft driver. I don't know how people make money doing Uber or Lyft. I really
I
don't.
think my stepfather does Uber, and in fact, he lives in Blue Ridge, I'm sorry, Blue Ridge, Georgia, which is about 2.5 hours from Atlanta. And so he's taken people to the airport. Blue Ridge is a resort town. He takes people to the airport. It's a 2.5 hour drive. I think the ride is about $100 one way, and
Mhm.
I think there's some pretty good profit in that too. So,
Okay, I just think that with the wear and tear on your car and after
which is all a write
gas,
off, right?
well, okay, that's true. It is. Okay, all right. So I don't want
It's
to.
an interesting thing. You could probably, with the miles and everything, you could probably pay your car payment, and
Mm,
that's all taken care of just from the miles. And
mhm,
then you're making a profit by taking people back and forth to the airport. Plus, people
mhm,
give pretty big tips for that kind of thing. So, and here's the other thing too. Larry, my stepfather, he's
mhm.
such a great conversationalist as well, and he's so
Oh, you have
positive
to
all
be
the time.
sure.
And so, I'm sure Larry's getting some pretty big tips for
Mm,
doing this. So, and he
yeah.
enjoys it. He enjoys
Mm.
it.
Hmm. Okay, on to a couple others. If you enjoy that kind of the social aspect, I think that's probably a pretty good thing. I was just going to say too, if you're not a drinker and you want to take those big nights of the year, St. Patty's Day, New Year's
Oh
Eve, those
yeah,
because the rates fluctuate, so they go way up
they
during
do.
those high times, so to speak.
That's funny.
Uh,
Wait,
so
wait. There
there's
is a
something to think
downside to
about.
that, though, and I
What's
talked to
that?
an Uber driver about that.
Oh, the
Uh,
irritating people,
Not
belligerent.
only the irritating people, but the people that are going to barf in your car.
Ooh,
It's
true.
a,
Oh
it's a big
boy.
deal.
Yeah, I would have buckets on both sides of the back seat, man,
Courtesy
for sure.
buckets.
Here's one, Merle. I'm going to end it with this because let's get on to more fun stuff. But park ranger. I didn't
Oh
know.
man.
I would think that's a young man's job or woman. You know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of hiking to be done, but I would love that. I don't care what time
Okay.
of year it
Wouldn't
is.
that be
I would love that.
great? I've thought
Yeah.
about that a lot. There's a lot of national parks and state parks around where I live, and I thought, man,
Yeah.
I see these guys, and they are like our age and older. There's young people as well, but I think, man, what a life! You get to just be out here in nature, and then there's the tranquility of just hearing the wind
Oh,
through the trees and deer. There's a deer over there. You don't get to see that at the office, so yeah,
oh, I
man,
think
that's
it would be
great.
tremendous. Oh, I would love that. I'm a huge outdoor
Me
person for
too.
sure.
Yep, yep.
LA, there's a couple things winding up here. A model, older model, or an extra in TV or film.
Right.
Uh, yeah, or dancing star.
Larry, Barry, Larry, whoever you are,
Oh, actually,
Merle.
I'm Earl Garrison this week.
So, okay, out here in Los Angeles, there is a movie being filmed almost on every corner here.
Sure,
Like, you see the
sure.
movie trucks and everything. I mean, I would imagine with the extra thing, my son was an extra in a movie.
Oh, what?
And okay, I knew you were going to ask me the name of it. I'll let you know, to be continued. I'll let you know what the name of it is.
Okay.
And personally, Brandon, I'm sorry, I still have not seen that movie. So if you could bring that over to the house sometime, because I want to see him in there. But he's in there several times apparently, and this
Uh,
is what people do around here. They're extras in movies and everything.
sure.
I met Larry David,
Mhm,
and he's one of my favorites. I love Seinfeld and everything, and I had
mhm.
an opportunity. I just happened to be in the supermarket, and I was standing next to him. I didn't know it, and I looked over to my side, and there he was, and I just yelled out, "Larry!" And he because you see these people on TV, you think you know them.
Yeah,
And he looked
true.
at me like, "Do I know you?" And I said, "Like, Larry,
Sure.
you don't know me, but I just wanted to thank you for all the years of laughter that you've given to me and my family. Thank you." And I introduced myself as Merle, and he shook my hand and he said, "Whoa, thank you, Merle." And
Ah,
I was like, he knows my name. And then I was going to ask him for a job on the show, but my feet just started moving away. So that was my big chance. I blew it. That's all.
Well, I got to be honest with you. You, from my point of view, you really lagged there. I didn't hear what you said after he shook your hand and your feet started moving or something.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to be on a show, but my feet had more class than my brain. My feet just exited out of there. And by the time I knew it, I was at my car, and I lost whole Hollywood chance there. But hey, wait.
Go ahead.
Oh, speaking of Hollywood, there is one thing I wanted to bring up here, and that we talked about movies one time, but we never actually aired it. And I just wanted to say that I saw a movie recently that just made me feel so good, and the movie's like 30 years old. Okay, so Field of Dreams. Have you seen that movie?
Sure.
Okay,
not in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think it was 88 or 87. So it's like 30-year-old movie. And I remember when the commercials came out with this, if you build it, he will come. And I thought that was the dumbest thing. And so I never watched it. And again, I was sort of a captive audience over the weekend. And I watched that movie. Talk about a positive, faith, inspiring movie, and especially the part about how him and his dad had passed away. And I don't know I'm sure almost everyone's seen this movie, but you and I,
it's been about 20 years for me, so I don't remember every nuance of it.
There's a scene where he's playing catch with his dad that just ripped me apart, by the way. It just reminded me of my dad and playing catch with him, and just like that good feeling. Back to the whole positive mental attitude thing. Barry, you and I were talking off the air about things that we used to do when we were kids and how we used to play. Like there's like a junkyard you used to play in. I was playing in a condemned house. We're playing out in the woods. We're lighting fires. We're down on the train tracks. You know what? Those inspire such good feelings. And I think everyone should just take a break every once in a while and just go back to that kind of stuff, because man, I had the best time, and it's just there's such happiness as a kid, and there's no reason for that to go away.
Well, you and I, to summarize so people know what we're talking about, our childhoods were very much like the movie Stand By Me. We were outside on the train tracks all day till when you absolutely had to come home. Yeah, and there are endless adventures out there. But the truth of the matter is that we were outside trying to find ways. You get creative. You don't even know you're being creative, but you're creatively finding ways to entertain yourself.
Right.
And you're learning social skills with your friends while you're doing it. But you know what, Merle? Here's the big thing. Here's something that never escapes me. As adults, we forget how to play. How to play.
Yeah.
And
play more.
Yeah, well, I love throwing Frisbee. It is rare for me to find somebody that'll throw Frisbee with me. It's playing, man. I mean, I'm like a dog chasing a ball. If you bring out a Frisbee, I'll be running my ass off. I mean, I love volleyball. My shoulder doesn't, but I absolutely love volleyball. But as adults, we forget how to play. We feel foolish a little bit, I think. And we really should organize a game of kickball.
Kickball, right?
Yeah.
I loved kickball. Didn't you love it? Like, I remember when I used to get up to kick the ball, everyone would move back. That made me feel really good.
I got to do that myself. I haven't done that in decades either. But, about once a year or every other year, I find somebody, usually my buddy Dan, we will actually throw Frisbee. And he likes to as well. Yeah, but it's not often.
Some of the best times played Frisbee I had with you. And Barry and I used to be roommates at this questionable apartment complex.
Good
We
way
were
to put
scared
it.
at night when we would come home. You'd hear
Yes.
you'd hear people like fighting upstairs or whatever, and like it physically fighting. But anyway, there was a big like courtyard
Big
area,
time.
and Barry and I would go out there and play frisbee. But there would be like a million kids, like there was like a
Can I
billion
play?
single
Try to
parents
me.
there. Yeah, and there'd just be like these crowds of people that, as I would throw the frisbee to Barry, and he'd be running after it. There'd be like 20 kids running after Barry. That was the funnest
One or two
time,
with a
man.
switchblade, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It was
Yep,
a different place, man.
times.
It was the project. Oh, we had some really, really good times. Hey, so I just want to remind everybody, do things that are creative. Get outside. When we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about hypnosis videos on YouTube or the book that is very faith-based, that are all these things that straighten your mind out, but getting outside does it. Go for a hike in the park. That's what we got on this, because they have park ranger job, which I should check into that. I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Getting outside makes everything right with us. I mentioned briefly, we're talking about those sounds that make everything right. To me, I didn't hesitate on that. Waves. I would, many times while growing up, I would just go to either the lake, or when I'm on vacation, so because I live by Lake Erie, or when I'm on vacation, we always go to Florida, listening to the rhythmic sound of waves coming. I remember I went to Puerto Vallarta one time many years ago, and I was on a particular beach that had all these pebbles. And when the waves would come in, when they would go out, you heard this gurgling sound of them going out over all these pebbles. Oh, dude, it was like you could have made me cluck like a chicken right there. If you could hypnotize me to do anything in that moment. It was so entrancing. So I just want to put a bow on that with getting outside. We have gotten so far into an unnatural, artificial lifestyle, and be surprised that when you just get outside for a little bit, how it puts things back into perspective.
This is really interesting, because I this week just happened to be studying. There's a study of sound, and this experiment, and I'm trying to cymatic. I'm not going to remember it, but what it was is they have this machine, and it's a platform that is sort of like your speaker and your stereo, where it vibrates to the sound. And what they would do is they would put these different materials on this flat surface, and then they would play sounds. Sometimes they would play music or speaking. And the interesting thing was the sand would make these patterns that had to do with the actual sound that was being made. And they were very intricate patterns. Some of them would be continuously moving. And the scientist, the guy's name is Hans Jenny. His whole premise had to do with how God spoke everything into existence, and his theory is that everything is made up of sound. The interesting thing was how different materials with the same sound acted differently. They formed different shapes. They formed different patterns. The bottom line that I got out of it is how important sound is, as you're talking about the waves, or we hear rain, or even a thunderstorm, which, by the way, we never hear out here. There's no thunder, which I miss. But just those sounds have every natural sounds. I think there's a healing element to it. And yet we're surrounded by these artificial sounds all the time, helicopters and planes and a jackhammer.
Irritating.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's a reason that it's important to get out into the woods or into nature and just be silent and listen to the harmony of nature. It's healing.
It really is. We got some other things that we need to talk about current event-wise, but I do have to say it. What you say makes me come back to when we're talking about the power of positive thinking. I have been very much conscious about my vibrational harmony, to use some very new age kind of terminology. And I told you, I think it was last week or the week before, that I decided that I would take January. My January New Year's resolution was to not drink, because January is such a dark month for me. To wake up on January 2nd and to be faced with this very dark, cold month is not the way I wanted to start 2020. To battle that kind of depression. I battled the seasonal affective disorder and so on. So I didn't want to add the depressant of alcohol to that. Very wise. I want to lift my vibrational harmony. This gets back to, you talk about The Secret. Okay, the book, the philosophy of The Secret. And when you visualize things and you feel it and you're in that space, that's when these things manifest themselves. Okay, you can, this dances alongside religion. You can find an easy balance and crossover right there. So when you talk about the sound or things in nature affecting sand or whatever in these different ways, everything is made up of energy in this world. So it is very important that we realize that we do vibrate at different frequencies, and to try and keep ourselves vibrating at a higher frequency will make everything in our lives go a whole lot better. I guess that's all I'm saying to wrap that up. It's all interrelated. You sent me a text the other day about Space Force.
Yeah, what'd you think of that?
I've found nobody talks about it that much. I'm sure listeners right now are going, what are they watching, the Jetsons or something? Or what are they talking about? The latest Star Wars quadrilogy or something? We're talking about, now it's Trump's thing. Okay, it wasn't always Trump's thing, but since he's now president, I suppose everybody was somewhat behind Space Force 3 years ago, and now a whole big faction of the country is probably against it. But it is funny. It's literally about the sixth branch of our military, developing a sixth branch of our military in space. And it's incredibly important because we have satellites up there, such as our entire GPS system, which countless companies are hugely dependent upon. And if anybody else, this is when you brought it up, Merle, by the way, I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos on it. I didn't even finish your article that you sent me, so please speak to that. But what I've always thought we had better, I've thought this for years now, since it first became a subject, we had better establish our dominance up there before somebody else does, or we will no longer be the superpower.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And every military conquest, the leaders of the military conquest know that if you can capture the high ground, that you have the military advantage. Sure. And so as we take a look at previous wars, looking at World War I, World War II, we can see that, the airplane and the tank had just been invented, and this was going to be incorporated and was incorporated into those wars. It's an interesting thing, though, as you take a look at it, is that these types of technology from a bureaucratic point of view were really outside of the box. And so there wasn't a lot of stock put into this type of technology leading into both wars. Of course, World War I, we were only involved in World War I at the end of the war, the last year and a couple of months. But then leading into World War II, there was this big conflict about where is the airplane going to fit into this? And also, where is the tank going to fit into this? And is it really something we need? Typically it was the infantry that's the most important thing. So guys like General MacArthur and General Pershing, they didn't put a lot of stock into this. And unfortunately, what we saw going into World War II is that our enemies had put a lot of stock into it. The Germans had put a lot into their Luftwaffe, and they'd also put a lot into their tanks, the Tigers and the Panzers. The unfortunate thing for us is because we didn't put our stock into that leading into the war. In fact, we had an isolationist policy leading into World War II that when we did go into battle, our Sherman tanks were no match for the German Panzers and the German Tiger tanks. In fact, our when we would shoot our projectiles at their tanks, they would bounce right off. When they would shoot our Sherman tanks, they would be destroyed. Not only that, here's another statistic, is that the airmen that were killed over the campaign in Europe equaled the exact amount, not the exact amount, roughly the same amount of Marines that were killed in the entire campaign of World War II. We lost a tremendous amount of people flying over Europe because we had not invented our technology. Back to the tank again, we needed to use our infantry because of the Sherman tanks were so weak. We needed to use our infantry in order to get close enough to their Tigers and their Panzers, because that's the only way that our tanks could be effective. We almost had to shoot at them at point blank range to damage them, which caused a ton of death in the infantry. In other words, so many more Americans would have come home alive had we invested in that technology, and probably the war would have lasted a much shorter period of time. And when you think about what Hitler was doing to the Jews in Nazi Germany, 6 million Jews, had we cut that in half, and by the way, the final solution didn't happen until the second half of the war, we may have been able to save all of their lives. So this article came out from Hillsdale College. They have a monthly a periodical that comes out called Imprimis. It's free, by the way. You can go to hillsdalecollege.com, look up Imprimis, sign up for it. It'll come to you every month. By the way, Hillsdale College. I love Hillsdale College. They don't take one red penny from the federal or state government. They're completely self-funded. I'm a big supporter financially of Hillsdale College. They came into being shortly before the Civil War, and they've been a college ever since. They're up in Michigan, and they have free online classes, by the way, which I take. You can learn all about the Constitution and the meaning behind it. It's one of the best educational programs you'll get in history. And so this monthly magazine came out, and this month it was Lieutenant General Stephen L. Quest, and he's a retired general of the Air Force. And he wrote this article. This guy's highly credentialed. And he wrote this article about the Space Force, which would be the sixth armed forces for the United States, which, by the way, has been approved by Congress, which I had no idea. Did you have any idea about this, Barry?
No, I didn't.
I had no idea either. It's already been approved by Congress, but the problem is, and of course it was Trump's idea. The problem is that the bureaucrats are thinking very bureaucratically. Bureaucrats don't think outside the box. And so they want to do things the same old way that they've always done it. And what they want to do is they want to use it as an extension of the Air Force, supporting their activities in the air and in the ground, which, okay, that's how we're using satellites today. So they're really not looking at doing anything differently than what they're doing. In contrast, General Quest has looked at China. And China has invested really all of their resources on this space program. And what we're seeing is that their goal, by the way, is by 2049 to have absolute dominance of space. Coincidentally, yes, it coincidentally lines up with the centennial of the communist revolution in China. So think about the implications of this.
Yeah, we'll all be speaking Chinese.
Well, not only that, but think about the type of government that they agree with. It is completely tyrannical. And so whoever rules space will also dominate the rest of the world,
That's my
meaning
point.
the type of government, the type of liberties that we have in America here would be absolutely taken away. Now, the Chinese are developing battleships and destroyers, space battleships, space destroyers that can move very quickly and hit hard. Not only that, but when you take a look at the economic ramifications of this, what we found is that the prosperity of nations is typically wrapped up in energy and technology and transportation. And so space offers up this gigantic economic boom. And we found that national security and prosperity are 100% linked together. So this space mission actually offers up a tremendous amount of liquidity as far as capital goes. Now, here's the deal: is that not only from a military point of view, but also a financial and economic point of view, that that everything in space operates on networks. And so it's easy to be able to transfer information or even energy or power from a network almost instantaneously. Think of the cost and the effort to send 100 mails or 100 letters through the U.S. mail compared to sending 100 emails. That's what we're talking about here. So the possibility is for them to be able to get this renewable energy, I mean, solar energy, and being able to beam that down to the planet to basically any location in the earth is a gigantic advantage, technical and military, that the Chinese may have an advantage over. This also means that, let's say, for instance, we were involved in a conflict with China or any other country, that from space, they could actually affect our power grid and shut down all of our energy, stymieing us. So what this means is that they can easily have a leg up, not only militarily, but also financially, which would devastate our unalienable rights that we have that are God-given. And that's exactly what their plan is. Now, we talk about what we talked about this last week on the show, and how companies like Baidu are stealing our corporate intelligence. Exactly. And so another aspect of being able to have these space networks is a higher degree of security, so things like this couldn't happen. Now, the good news is this, is that the analogy that Lieutenant General Quast had said, I keep looking down at his name, is that America is like a race car who's been winning every race for the last 70 years going 100 miles per hour, and we're in the lead. But China now has figured out how to go 150 miles per hour, and they're catching up. Right now, we've depleted our space program. We don't even have the technology or capability to send a man up into space today. Did you know that we actually use the Russians to send anybody up to the International Space Station? We don't even use our own technology anymore. We shut that down. And so this is huge. What I said is, the good news is that if we are to get serious about
shuttles
right now, the shuttle program is shut down. That does not happen anymore. That shut down about 8 years ago. I remember the last shuttle when they brought it back. It's in a museum here at the Science Museum here in Los Angeles. It ain't going anywhere anymore.
Dude, this is all deeply disturbing.
Well, the good news is this, that there are people now that are in charge that understand the significance of this. They understand that it needs to be separated from the Air Force, because we don't want to suck resources away from the Air Force. And we don't want the Air Force looking at this as just a tool for themselves. And if we start developing on this right now, we can really get a head start over China and allow that domination of China to never happen. But that means we do have to start right now.
Absolutely. I can't believe, I've said this for years, I can't believe we don't have a moon base in 2020.
Interesting that you said that, because the Chinese have landed within the last year or two a space probe on the dark side of the moon. And not only have they found rich resources there that could be transferred back to the United States, to the Earth, which would provide trillions of dollars of resources, but they've also found military advantages there as well. Now, the Chinese do not have the ability to put a man in space, but that's only limited. Right now, we don't have the ability to put a man in space either.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? But things could change, and it could change quickly. And I think it's important that guys like us get the word out there so people understand what this whole Space Force is about.
No, geez, that really, really is very disturbing. So yeah, we definitely need to support that. Merle, we are at an hour. I just want to see. Yeah, I know. We really went on some rants here. All good stuff. I thought it was very
great stuff,
informational and fun to talk about. Wanted to see if you had any impeachment updates that you wanted to share.
Not so much of an update. I mean, everybody is seeing what's happening right now. We're in the Senate now. We've had some long days that the Democrats are stating their case, and then we're going to have some long days where the Republicans will be stating their defense. I about a month ago said this is really one of the most exciting historical events that's happening, and pardon me.
Exciting.
I've changed my mind.
I know, because I'm finding it so ridiculously boring.
Hate it. Somebody compared it to Groundhog Day. They're just saying the same thing the same way every time. In fact, Barry, I have found that I can't listen to it anymore. It brings me down. It gives me that dark feeling. I feel that it's 1,000% partisan, and it kind of makes me feel sick. And I actually started to become enraged, and I started to feel hate even. And see, these are things that are not part of my personality, and things that I never want to be a part of my personality. And that's when I realized I have to step away from this. And I also feel bad if that's happening to me, it must be happening to most people here in America. I think the very best thing that could happen is that after they get through these arguments, they're going to have a vote. And that vote is going to be whether to move forward or to dismiss the case. Now, 21 state attorney generals sent a letter to the Senate earlier this week, recommending that they dismiss the case. And that's what the vote is going to be, whether to dismiss the case or not. They're saying that because the articles of impeachment do not line up with the criteria that's in the Constitution of treason, high crimes or misdemeanors, or bribery, that this sets up a terrible precedent going into the future and endangers the country, so that any president, whether they're Democrat or Republican, will be impeached right away. Not only that, every single president would have been guilty of the same thing leading up to even George Washington, because every president has claimed presidential
authority.
They don't have to get certain information. Presidential, I forgot the name, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I do too. And I was just reading an article about that where this guy was talking about this, and it says from 2009 through early 2017, President Obama's supporters brightly enabled him as he trampled the Constitution's parchment barriers to implement progressive policies, granting lawful presence to millions of aliens, suspending enforcement of marijuana laws, rewriting onerous provisions of Obamacare, entering into international, in quotes, agreements without Senate ratification.
Yes.
And the list goes on
The
and
Iran
on.
thing. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Fast and Furious. It's a presidential privilege, by the way. So executive privilege. Obama claimed executive privilege on Fast and Furious, and the subpoenas went unanswered, and that's always been. Even Washington claimed executive privilege because there are some things that need to be kept secret, and that's why we have an executive to be able to manage those things. By taking that away, you neuter that second branch of the government, you weaken our government and cause it to move quickly towards a tyrannical form. So these are the stakes that we're looking at here. Here's the good news. The good news is this: you and I are seeing this, and like most of the American people, we're sick of it, and we don't want our freedoms to be taken. And we can see what's happened in Virginia, where the gun rights thing that's coming to everyone in America, every state in America, what Mike Bloomberg is trying to do by buying the election. And here's the deal: is that these people seem to think that the rights that we have under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are privileges that American people are given by the government. But that's exactly not what our country is based on. The Declaration of Independence makes it entirely clear that these are not privileges. These are unalienable rights that are given to us by God, and the function of the government is to protect those rights. So when we hear politicians speaking in a different way, that these are given to us, rights given to us by the government, or privileges that can be given or taken away, beware.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah, I just can't wait to be done with this. And
me too.
I just want to stress that all I want is I want to get back to respectable politics, and I don't see that happening anytime in the near future. I've mentioned this before. I think that Trump acts like a 12 or 14-year-old all the time. I really do. And I do find him embarrassing. I think he's done a lot of good because he's the kind of the antidote to the political correctness that we've, and I should say the identity politics and all that bullshit that we've had kind of pushed down our throats. But the left's way of dealing with it, well, if he's going to act like a 12-year-old, we're going to act like 8-year-olds. We'll beat him. And that's what I am completely sick of. I am absolutely tired of that. I don't find anything about the president, the run of the Democrats right now, Warren, and I don't know, Biden is just boring. But probably, I think their front runner is probably Elizabeth Warren, and I think that she's completely a joke. I really like Tulsi Gabbard because she's anti-establishment. She's completely adult and respectable, and yet the left wants nothing to do with her. She's even a woman, and she's of whatever race, Hawaiian, but it checks a box in their race box. Because that's so important. So I'm disappointed in the state of politics right now, and I just think that we're light years away from getting maturity back into it. That's all.
I see it. I'm sick of it as well. I agree with you on that, but I do see it a little differently.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I like President Trump's behavior all of the time. However, I wouldn't say that it was Trump acting like a 12-year-old first. What I would say is this, is that there definitely is an establishment in Washington that is in a bubble that is completely unaffected by the plight of the common man here in America, and that they have systematically been fleecing not only our finances, but our but our liberty, and that Trump is the anti-establishment person that we voted in because we realize that our liberties are being sapped away from us. And as we take a look at how Trump has defended himself, let's face it, they actually began to spy on his campaign. They tried to railroad before he was elected. They were spying on. If you read the AG report or the IG report, you'll see that they had informants inside of the president-elect's campaign while he was campaigning, and information about what he was doing and how he was doing it was being shared with his opponents. And not only that, but as soon as he got elected, they tried to took down Flynn right away on a bogus call. They took down Manafort. He was completely unrelated to the election. They've tried to taint everything that he said all along. They've spoken about impeachment from before he ever even had one day in the office. The whistleblower himself now is on the record of saying, how can we impeach President Trump 2 weeks after he was elected? So I believe that there is an establishment that does not actually care about our constitutional rights, and that we elected President Trump to fight this. And we needed a Mike Tyson type of a fighter to come in to fight this type of tyranny, the kind that will bite your ear off if he starts to lose. And I'm telling you that, you know what, as far as my liberty is concerned, I think it's ugly. But if he can get the job done, then I'm all for him. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, man, I really appreciate that. I definitely worry about the Constitution, the health of the Constitution as we move forward. And we are right now in a state of do or die. And I mean, seriously.
That's why I say if we have to bite someone's ear off in order to save the Constitution, then so be it. We've got to fight for it. It's unfortunate, but it's just like Ronald Reagan said, is that liberty is not inherited. We have to fight for it in every generation. And this is the only guy that was up for election in the last round that was willing to fight for it. None of the other Republicans were. None of the Democrats were. So this is the fight of our lives, literally.
Yeah, it was about draining the swamp. We have got to wind this up. We're at an hour and 11. And I just want to say thanks to everybody for listening. And please give us any comments at over50startingover.com. You can send us an email there or on our YouTube channel. And please subscribe. You'll find our audio subscriptions as well as our YouTube right at over50startingover.com. So we hope to hear from you guys and hook up with you guys next week. Merle, it's been great.
It sure has, Barry. Yep.
All right, buddy. See you.